What's going on, boys and girls? Hey, listen, can we have a grown-up conversation here today? I want to talk about spices, and I think this is a category in perfumery that is not talked about enough because in my journey and in my collection, I have seen spices literally take a fragrance from B tier to S tier in terms of what they can do texturally, what they can do to the scent profile, how it ignites the senses. I want to have a grown-up conversation about 5 fragrances that have constantly been in my rotation, fragrances that I absolutely adore. So this one's for my grown folk out there, but I did grab 1 or 2 for my youngins. So get your popcorn. Let's go for that ride. All right, welcome to the Scent Bubble. I am your host for the evening. Okay, this episode is kind of a wing it, you know what I'm saying? Because this conversation is huge. As I thought through it, I know I want to do a deep dive on the spectrum of spices. What are spices? What do they do to a fragrance? How many different kinds of spices are there? The different classifications of fragrances that spices are used in terms of their different facets to fragrance styles. But even though I'm not prepared to go that deep yet, because I want to get some really good holistic information for you guys, I want to just talk about 5 spicy fragrances that I really love, and that kind of will just get the ball rolling for me personally to creep into the topic, and it'll also kind of scratch the itch of those of you who have been wondering what I wear in this category. So we're not going to have any kind of backstory. I just want to show you guys 5 fragrances that feature spices, tell you why I like them, how I feel spices contribute to the scent, and I'm also going to try to show you a few different ways I've seen spices be used successfully. So number 1, let's start off with an ageless fragrance that my kiddos can lock into and wear today and probably haven't really worn. Maybe you've just tried it in a Sephora or something like that, but I really think it's slept on. This is Viktor&Rolf's Spicebomb Infrared. And I really feel like this fragrance is known but not being worn enough. I always tell people, I guess it's partially my fault. I've told a lot of people, hey, Spicebomb, Extreme, OG, everything comes from that. Like every Spicebomb has 70% of that DNA in it. And so in my opinion, they did it the best with original Extreme. And everything else from that is kind of just an experiment, a dice roll. But Infrared is really the dice roll that paid off because it features this scent in the red light, that kind of red tobacco from Mancera style juice, the Prada Luna Rosa Le Parfum, that showcase, which I feel is really not been done the best and comes off quite synthetic in those styles. This accomplishes that in a very good way, and in a way where it takes tobacco and cinnamon and things like that and showcases it, I don't want to say youthfully, but playfully, because most of the time when you see tobacco and various spices used, and even though tobacco is not a spice, I'll explain to you why I consider it a spice. Normally it goes quite mature. This is a scent that really any age can tap into. And really, it's kind of the genesis of entry level getting started with spicy fragrances. So for me, what Infrared has in it is obviously pepper and cinnamon, but it also features tobacco. And though tobacco is not a spice, I really do feel like when it is paired with spices, it's like injecting a steroid shot into whatever spice you have, and it just becomes, beastly textural. And so what I feel like tobacco is just as much a part of the spice category. It lifts the nostrils, it puts texture on a fragrance, it changes the texture from smooth to growl, and so it amplifies spices in a way that almost makes it a second cousin to spices. And it does that well with infrared. Infrared is a beautiful nighttime, afternoon, sweet, spicy, intimate yet bold, courageous experience. It's a confident booster. It's seductive. It's super masculine. It's intoxicating. And I really think they nailed the blend here to the point where I feel like infrared should get just as much respect as OG Spicebomb Extreme. That red tint is really all it needed to change the mood of it and make it even more sexy. I think this juice is slept on. I don't think people think it's bad or anything like that. I just think that Spicebomb Extreme is so good. And because the Spicebomb line is marketed to, more your south of 25 age group, most people either just get Spicebomb Extreme or they have a lot of them because, just like Coach, you want the blue, you want the green. Even recently, I think it's Metallic Musk did really well. But I think infrared is still just almost tied for first or close second place to the OG Spicebomb Extreme. And I just love the use of pepper, cinnamon, and tobacco to create this smooth red candy kind of experience that doesn't feel synthetic at all. So number one, all my ages can tap into that. Let's talk about something like, in my opinion, pure spicy masculine class. This is Salvatore Ferragamo's Spicy Leather. Oh, oops. Sorry, guys. There we go. And this is an incredible, unapologetically masculine, classy, and mature spice. Yet, it doesn't feel old manish. With spices this aggressive, you would immediately think it evokes unk vibes. And though it is definitely not juvenile and it is super grown smelling, it has a youthful pop to it. The way they've made this feel more ageless, and it's not truly ageless, but I'm just saying without this factor, the scent would have felt 40 and up. And what they did was, typically a scent profile like this will feel very heavy on the skin. It would wear like a Credo from Nishane or, ombre leather parfum, which feels quite heavy and it sits with some serious weight. They took this grown, sophisticated leather briefcase lawyer, cowboy type of bravado, and they just cut the weight in half. So you still get the features of a scent like that, but the scent is airy and light. It's more middle to low weight. And just that weight cut on a fragrance gives it a perception of youth that would take a fragrance that feels 40 and up and drop it down to like 25 and up. Because I really do think my young men who want to get into their semi-formal to formal bag in the professional workplace and even in like the sexy date night category, if you're not just going to Outback Steakhouse, but you're going to go, Ruth Chris it up or Fogo de Chao or, a really upscale restaurant, and you want to just be unapologetically sexy, this is a no apologies, I am a man, masculine, spicy fragrance that has just a tiny bit of sweetness. Like we're talking 3 out of 10 sweetness. And I love that aspect about it. It's a natural, ambery, sweet, spicy, heavily spicy, but lightweight type of fragrance. And so it's intoxicating in that way because it's unapologetically masculine. And the sweetness is like such an afterthought. It's still appreciated, but it's still a spicy celebration. I think when you hear spicy leather, you imagine something to be quite spicy, quite heavy, and intense. Though this is a very heady experience, so it is intense in the top notes. I think you guys will be like super surprised to put your nose to this because it feels very modern, very airy. It doesn't feel heavy. The leather isn't leathering super hard. It's not animalic. It's a very modern, posh leather take. And I really don't like to mess with leathers unless it's from a house that is known for handling leathers. And for those of you guys who don't know, Salvatore Ferragamo initially in the 1900s, 1950, I believe, and up, they specialized in Italian luxury, and one facet of that was leathers. And so they've been manufacturing leather, harvesting leather, um, curating different leathers, and they were doing that way before they got into perfumery. So then when perfumery hit the scene, they had some very specific objectives and targets for knowing what they wanted to create in terms of making it as natural of an experience as possible. So Ferragamo as a house is some of the best, without question, handlers of the leather accord in perfumery. And they're just the best to do it, in my opinion, for versatility. I mean, all their leathers are great. You'll often have more than one, and I've recommended many of them on this channel, and they're super duper affordable. So I really love that about them. Nutmeg, pepper, and saffron in this leather. So it's kind of, I feel like the saffron smooths out the pepper and the nutmeg, but nutmeg is also a very smooth spice, unlike, cinnamon and clove and things like that. Nutmeg as a spice is a lot softer and smoother of a spice. It's a very subtle approach to spice. So I feel that between that and kind of just how saffron combines with other things, it really kind of allows for this super smooth yet very vibrantly spicy experience. And this is amazing. Super affordable. I think I got my 100 mil for like 20, maybe $30. Absolutely phenomenal spicy fragrance. Highly recommend you guys get into it. Super modern and timeless. Next up, we have Roja. And this is amazing. Danger Parfum Cologne. Talk about a beautiful kind of oriental spicy fougere style. This is what I like about the Parfum Cologne series is, Danger, Fetish, Scandal, Elysium, Vetiver, all these fragrances had original pour hommes that were eau de parfum concentrations, and they sought to put a lighter weight and a more modern top note finish to all of those OGs, hence coming forth with the Parfum Cologne series, which all the bottles look like this. It's also a great bridge into the Roja house because traditionally their fragrances typically run north of $200-300 at the entry point. And so the Parfum Cologne series really allowed young people to get into Roja who would be intimidated by the price point and the complex nature of the house. They kind of McDonald's a lot of their concepts into something more palatable, packageable, light and airy, and more lightweight, fancy. And I think that was an incredible decision because they made a lot of great juices. And with Danger, originally it had just such a pristine, juicy depth of oriental fougere thing going on that putting it into a parfum cologne made it more lightweight while still retaining that aftershavy oriental spicy Barbary upscale rich classy feel. And that's what you kind of want it to do as a daily driver. That heady fougere style or heavy fougere style really I feel was more of the past. Nowadays, I think men like their fougères to be light and airy and be able to run around and be mobile with it. They don't want this heavy, dense, thick, feel like you're trying to make your way through a forest of various elements. We don't want that. We want a kind of sportier take on the fougere in terms of the year 2026. If, for people who want to get into gentleman fragrances that just are intimidated by how much depth and complexity and outdoorsiness and herbaceousness and spiciness and herbalness that fougere brings to the table. And even just the familiar associations it has to, greens and herbs and, its association with barbershops and top hats and, the working class and all that. making them lighter weight and giving them more modern top notes has it not only allows younger people to get into it, but it also is just reflective of the times now. We really need more sporty, lighter fougères that are airy and have a breath to them, because that's what we want this style to be showcased as, especially if you're not in super cold climate where a lot of that can be broken up and diffused. So I really appreciate it. This is amazing. This is barbershop spicy done modern, and it just has it's the highest rendition of barbershop smells. So what I find is, like, when you look at a Bentley or, La Ligue Pour Homme and things like that, they feel barbershoppy, but old barbershop. This feels like your most modern, pristine. The lights are nice. They've got LED lights. They've got the Palo Santo soaked in the towel. They're doing a full groom. They're playing hip, modern music. It's not top hatty anymore, but men are still men, and they're luxurious, and they're of a new time and a new style. That's what I feel like is captured in this scent. So for my youngins out there, if you want to get into a gentleman's fragrance, now right now you might only have special occasions for something like this, but this is a scent you can absolutely grow into, and you won't be called an old man. You might be called an old man now if you wear it out of place, but if you're buttoned up, suit and tied up, or you're going to something important, you need a scent that will reflect people taking you seriously, a scent that makes you feel confident, a scent that makes you feel ahead of your time, and that's what Danger is. And it features an interesting take on spices because it has cumin and clove. And that, honestly, I can't really describe to you guys what that's doing here. All I can say is that it's unlike how tobacco and honey and cinnamon and some of your more typical pepper and things like that. The cumin clove here almost puts the spice deep in the background as a growl facet and not as much in the top note experience. So this is kind of like a growling, low frequency spice that isn't as sharp and edgy. It's very smooth, but very rich and deep, almost how oud works in Oud for Greatness. It creates this mysterious backdrop. This isn't a mysterious backdrop, but it's a spicy, rich, bold backdrop that is screaming behind some beautiful, smooth oriental top notes. Absolutely epitome of gentleman class in the modern day. That's Roja's Danger Parfum Cologne series. Let's speed it up a little bit. I think I'm kind of chewing the heck out of the time here. I didn't want to go more than 20 minutes. Let's talk old school fougere, but as it relates to spice, I wanted to show you guys the green spicy territory, and that's with Aramis Havana. I love the house of Aramis not only for fougères, but for a lot of your things like furs and resins and greens and herbs and lavenders and oak mosses and things like that. A lot of the stuff that today aren't made the same and have become more and more synthetic and more lightweight. Aramis kind of is what is the best showcase of how fougères used to feel, in terms of their depth and complexity and realness, and when they were non-synthetic, smelling in terms of cheapness or just overly sharp stuff. This is where you could put a lot of stuff in a scent and it would still be smooth. Now, this is a showcase of tobacco and cinnamon, but normally people's association with that is kind of sexy time fragrances, your Wajon styles and stuff like that. But this has nothing to do with honey and sweetness. This takes it outdoors and surrounds those spices with greenery. So this is kind of a green, spicy fragrance with tobacco, but it also has a caraway note in it as well. I want to see real quick if I can see what caraway does in a scent. I want to read a description of it real briefly here. So, caraway is a sharp and sweet, lightly spicy note coming from the essential oil of caraway seeds. So, um, it's interesting what spices do in the presence of herbaceous greens, because the greenness creates this green, fresh outdoor tint, but then the spices elevate it to have a really screechy growl, but it's palatable because it cuts through the noise. And this isn't your typical screechy notes in perfumery today where one note or one chemical will just stick out and be annoying. This is like a presence of a group of ingredients screaming together like a choir, and you just having to be, you being kind of, it commands attention. That's what it does. And so this green, spicy, herbal tobacco experience is really like a green, spicy explosion dominated by this greenness. And the spices are behind it, just pushing the green out in front of you to sing and to be sharp, but it's smoothly sharp. And, it gives the greens growl. It's hard to explain. This is very gentlemanly. This is very 40 plus, in my opinion, ambitious 30 and up. But if you ever want to smell what, here, let me say this and I'll stop here. We'll finish with number 5. I feel like a lot of fougères are hard to get into because not only do they feel like they're from the past, but they don't make sense to people today. They not only smell old, but they don't even like it, you know? And I feel like fragrances from the house of Aramis are like kind of like Michael Jackson hits. Like Michael is, dead and gone, and his music has been around forever. He's been making music since he could walk, and he's been famous since he could walk. And yet people today can go back and listen to Michael and it still feels hip and cool and fun, even though it clearly sounds like music from the past. It is beyond time. That's what I feel like Aramis has done with their fougères, is they've made it to where, yes, you are smelling an older scent. You are smelling a profile style that is not of today's Sephora selections, but it's timeless. It truly, when you smell it, you can connect to it. It may not be for you, but it doesn't feel like, man, those fragrances should have stayed in their time period. No, it warrants its timelessness, and this is a retro classic you would be proud to play back if you're ready for it. And if you're not ready for it, that's totally okay, but you'll still respect it. The blend here is smooth. It has depth and richness. It's not taking the fougère style and copping out with tons of modern cheap citruses or anything like that. It's unapologetically green, outdoorsy, sharp, radiant, bright, crisp, textured, spiced, and green. It is green, green, green to the end, but it's done in a way I feel a lot of fragrances today that try to imitate fougères have just lost entirely. Again, this is Aramis Havana, and it is a hood classic that is utterly timeless. Just look it up if you don't believe me. Go see what the average score is on all of these fragrances, and you'll see I know a little something about this, and you should at least get your nose on it if my opinion means anything to you. Let's wrap up with the last feature of spices. And again, I hope you don't think today that this is the range of spices. This is a very limited range, but I want to get you guys into it and I want to get myself into it so we can follow up and go deeper into this conversation. This is one of my favorite fragrances, Lalique's Ombre Noir. And what's so amazing about this is you have your Wajons, you have your La Male elixirs, you have your spicy, sweet honey tobacco style fragrances, but this takes tobacco and it takes a honeyed tobacco approach where the honey in this case is actually cognac soaked. So it's got a dark sweet liqueur wrap around tobacco, like a very warm, sweet, ashy cigar. But typically people would go in the direction of syrupy and intoxicatingly, like, you know, heavy and dense and syrupy. Whereas this utilizes herbs and spices and resins to actually brighten that. So it's not as intimate like a hug, but it's like a long distance kiss or something like that. This utilizes tobacco, cinnamon, and mint. And the reason I'm saying that, I'll say the rest of the notes in a minute, but I really feel like the nose lift from mint, you know, the sensation of mint, the spiced feeling of the tobacco, and then the cozy nature of the cinnamon, though it gives a brash, bright screech to this profile, the cinnamon smooths it out. The lavender smooths it out. The cognac glues it together so that it's a controlled growl, and it's still passionate, it's still sensual, but it's wild, it's aggressive, it's untamed. And I'm going to spray this on skin. Guys, 30 to 50 bucks for a juice like this is unheard of. Oh my gosh. It's amazing what a fragrance can do when it's not base noted in just vanilla and woods and stuff like that. When it's grounded in just kind of resins and tobacco and stuff, you can have a heavy smell that moves like a figure skater. You know, it's like it's mobile. And I love an intoxicatingly sexy fragrance that is so light and dances on the skin, but still smells full of weight. The weight is in its presence and not in its feeling. There's a lot of fragrances that feel very heavy, but they don't feel that complex and full of depth. And it feels like fragrances that are heavy should be heavy because they have depth and complexity. And they don't, which makes a very confusing wearing experience. This is like, it's so light and airy, yet packs so much into it that it gives the feeling, all the benefits of a heavy fragrance without the weight of it. And so this wears quite light, but again, it's tobacco wrapped in cognac, frankincense and myrrh, lavender, bergamot, mint, green papyrus. It's not a very green scent. It truly is mostly a cognac scent, a dark liquor with an ashiness of tobacco, and then just this sensualness achieved by cinnamon, papyrus, bergamot, mint, lavender. It's a beautiful scent, and it's an unorthodox play on a juice that would typically lean towards a style more like Angel Share or, you know, Naxos style. You know, this is a complete role reversal with those where you get the same profile with a completely different energy. So the spices in here is obviously just cinnamon, but when the cinnamon is accompanied by tobacco and mint, the mint lifts it to the nostrils and then the tobacco growls it. So it gives cinnamon a different personality here. So anyways, let's give you guys my closing thoughts and kind of wrap up. Spices make fragrances exciting. They give fragrances texture. They give them personality. They give them a different sensory experience. You guys have heard me on this channel talk about, you know, fragrances that are one-dimensional, two-dimensional, three-dimensional, four-dimensional. Spices really pack 1 to 2 dimensions of depth within themselves. And so when you have when you put that into a fragrance, whatever it had, it just +1, +2s it, and it elevates the senses. And it's great when you not only have a good smell, but you have something playing and evoking things from the senses. And really, spices lift the nostrils, they pull you in, they grab attention, they're disruptive to the air, they support and highlight other notes. Spices really, I think, are low key, the all-time quarterbacks within a fragrance, because they can make fragrances change uncharacteristically from scent to scent. They don't always behave the same way. You could take pepper or pink pepper and stuff, and it'll work and do a different kind of magic to 5 different scents. It's not going to feel the same as if vanilla was in every scent and things like that. So from a chemistry standpoint, they just ignite a ton of senses and elevate and present other notes in a special way. And I think they're highly slept on. I also think they instantly mature a scent and instantly command more attention than a scent had previously, which makes the fragrance space exciting and fun. So we'll get into more fragrances that showcase different spices and more aggressively spicy fragrances, but those are 5 that constantly stay in my rotation and that have different personalities to them. I tried to show you, kind of old school fougere style, oriental fougere style, unapologetically modern, classy man, flirtatious, youthful spice, and then, intoxicating, grown and sexy, intimate spice. And hopefully you guys benefited from that. Definitely get your nose on all of these fragrances. The Spicebomb you can get $50 to $100. The Ferragamo $20 to $30. The Roja, you can regularly get this around the $120 price point at the low. Havana might cost you $30 to $50 depending if they're scalping. And Ombre Noir, though discontinued and though many people scalp the heck out of it and it's always sold out, when it is available, you can get it between $30 to $60. So really just a powerhouse of affordable options here. And let me know in the comments section, what are some of your favorite go-to spicy fragrances that you'd like me to either talk about or just learn more about based off something that you're really enjoying out there. Again, like, comment, subscribe. More importantly, turn on that notification bell. Talk to me. I do talk back. Make sure you check out the playlist section where I've organized this channel, and there's so much content, it needs to be organized in a way where you can just watch specifically the things you need help with or the things you need to be entertained by. Also, make full use of my Discord server, which has my close-knit community, my ride or dies, my day ones, and I show them more love than the general public. So if you're interested in reaping all the benefits of that, it is free. Check it out in the comments section below. And let's get a conversation going in the comments section. Again, I got to go, but I'm going to throw 2 videos up that might pique your interest based off what you've been searching for. And I hope you have a blessed rest of your day and benefited from 5 spicy fragrances that are in my rotation today. Stay blessed, guys. Peace.